kind of wandering, and I meet cool people, and I hear of beautiful places that I want to go check out and get it. When you meet travelers, you always get that like little travel insight, like you got to go to this waterfall in this spot, and I write it down on my phone. I'm like, when I'm in Montana, go here, and then they tell, when you go to this restaurant and let them know that you know Jenny, and they'll take good care of you. It's like, I love that stuff.
Well, and that's the stuff that people who haven't done this don't know happens. I tell people, like, if you jump, you'll find wings, right? Yeah. And that's one of the things that you can't anticipate. It's not in your fucking Lonely Planet. It's not on Yelp. And you can't plan for it. You need to just go. Just buy your fucking ticket to Bangkok. And, go to some island and hang out and be friendly and be open and have a smile on your face. And you're going to meet people who are going to tell you about amazing places that they just came from or that they're about to go to and invite you along.
For a week or two and then go your own way.
That's how it works. Yeah. That's the difference between travel and fucking tourism.
Yep.
And the other thing is, don't get 2 weeks off work and think this shit's going to work. No. That's not how it happens. You got to quit your fucking job. You can't be traveling, and I've done both, right? And I'm sure you have too. The one kind of traveling is till the money runs out. I mean, in your case, you don't have to worry about that, or until you just get tired of it.
Right.
But the other kind of travel is until your time runs out, because you got a month or 2 months or whatever it is. One kind, you're adding experiences and a cumulative celebration of freedom and life and travel. The other, you're counting down.
Yeah.
The whole tone of the trip is different.
Yeah, especially when you overplan something. And definitely planning to some degree it can be important. Like, for example, I've showed up in places like in Colombia. I went to the Tayrona National Park, which is a beautiful park on the Gulf of Mexico. And it just so happened the first 2 weeks of January are their spring break, kind of their summer break. So it was like, it was madness. I was out in nature, but I couldn't get a photo without a bunch of people playing volleyball in it, Right. So doing a little research is good, but there's something about having an open-ended, unplanned kind of going towards something rather than to something.
Right.
And the amount of, it just certainly seems like, in a lot of cases, that opens you up to things that feel like synchronicity.
Right.
Where things, occasionally you just have this run where stuff feels like magic.
Yeah.
Everything works out so incredibly. And if you had planned it, you would miss all kinds of opportunities. If you've got your next plane ticket a week later, then you meet some cool people and you can't go.
Right.
You can't follow your Swedish friends down to New Zealand to go whitewater rafting because you've got to get back to California and get back with your rock band, which was so frustrating for me at the time. I had like commitments and a regular life to maintain, and this type of traveling is freedom in its purest sense. It feels like which is one of the highest values for me.
Yeah, just being able to float on whatever current pulls you. That is such a wonderful fucking feeling.
It is.
Yeah, wow. When I finish this book, Cassie and I are going to go, I think, to Southeast Asia. We've been talking about Colombia, though. Maybe Colombia, Ecuador could be interesting. But I found, my first travel experiences, like real long-term travel, was Asia. And then I went to Europe after that, and I had been to Mexico before, and Guatemala, yeah. But I don't know if you found this, but I found after Asia, Latin America feels, it's just, the way I articulate it to myself is that Latin American countries seem to wish that they were America, that they were the United States. And so there's this resentment. They're like the resentful younger brothers of the United States, whereas Asia is a whole different family. Like India, they don't give a fuck. They're in a whole different world, or Laos or, whatever. I mean, every country's different, obviously, but do you feel that? Is there a...
Yeah, well, I don't know if I've necessarily felt that type of resentment, but there's something that feels a lot more foreign and exotic about the ancient Orient to me, and I really feel drawn to certain areas, and I wanted to check out South America because I'd never been, and I only spent 3.5 months there, and kind of in short times in different areas, like five or six countries, but there's just really something about through Eastern Europe down into the Mediterranean and the Middle East into North Africa and then up through Central Asia that just really, really call to me. And there's just there's this ancient cultural feeling that, the history of civilization, and there's so many people living such exotic and different lives than what I've been exposed to, and I'm really drawn to a lot of those areas and not really so drawn to exploring more. I mean, I'd like to go down into Central America, and I've heard it's really beautiful, and I love warm, clear water. It's one of the things I really love is scuba diving or snorkeling and spearfishing, and living in. I like being in climates where I feel like humans are supposed to be. Where I can go around in shorts. And
no
barefoot
shoes,
and like I can shower outside and swim in rivers and not be really cold afterwards, being way cold or way hot and feeling like nature's trying to kill you. And I appreciate those moments.
You have the fucking bugs when those tropical places.
That's true.
It's not trying to kill you, it's just trying to suck your blood.
Yeah.
A milliliter at a time.
But I appreciate those moments especially when I'm in nature, when everything is just so, and you feel like this is where I feel like a wild animal here, like I belong here.
Yeah.
And so I kind of tend to follow the summers around the world. I kind of go northern hemisphere in the summer and southern hemisphere in the winter, and kind of, because I also don't like to travel with a lot of stuff. I don't want to have to carry all these warm clothes around and keep myself from, that limits you from going to certain areas. But, I love that kind of wild, raw feeling of being a human in the world where you feel like you belong in that environment.
Yeah. Yeah, my wife grew up in Mozambique. She really resonates with that kind of thing. And also in terms of food, like, even in Portland, we'll be walking down the street and she'll be just grabbing berries and tomatoes and stuff off people's plants. And I'm like, baby, you can't just take that.
I know. I'm the same way, though.
What do you mean? It's growing. It's growing. Of course we can take it. No, I think someone owns that. But yeah, she's a forager. She loves that stuff.
There's such good food. I love Ethiopian food. One of my favorite foods in the world.
Have you been to Ethiopia?
No, and I really want to. I just met up with another travel blogger. We went and hiked up to Eagle Creek, Eagle Creek, and swam in this gorgeous waterfall. And he was telling me about places that he's been and got me all excited about Ethiopia, for example. And he's got a good friend there that he wants to go stay with. And he traveled a little bit in I can't remember where he was in Jordan and Israel and a couple other really interesting places in the Middle East. And just the food. I spent a month in Turkey last summer, and oh my gosh, just most people have gardens in their front yard instead of a lawn.
Yeah.
And so, you're having breakfast at someone's house and they go out and pick tomatoes and cucumbers, and they've got a variety of cheeses and breads, and then they'll fry an egg for you, and like your breakfast is just a spread of
olive oil.
I fell in love with cheese over in the Mediterranean and Europe. Like, you don't appreciate cheese in the US. Just cheese
it's
and
dead.
wine. And,
it's
cheese,
all
wine,
dead.
And bread, and these things are like.
Yeah. Well, I live in Spain most of the time, right? I've been in Spain 22 years.
Oh, wow.
Awesome. Yeah. We're only in the U.S. sort of passing through slowly. But I've been based in Barcelona for 4 years, something like that.
Beautiful.
And I remember one night Cassie and I were watching this HBO series about Rome. And, we had our normal sort of light Spanish dinner, just pica pica, it's called in Spain, just like things, whatever to eat, a little cheese, a little bread, olive oil, some olives and some, vegetables, pickled this or, whatever. And we're sitting there eating some red wine, and we're watching this Rome series, and there's a scene, everybody's sitting around eating, and I realized they're eating exactly the same thing we're eating, and Romans were in Barcelona. Right. There are all these bars where you're sitting there and the wall next to you is built by the Romans,
right.
I love that kind of stuff.
That style of eating too.
Yeah, it's kind good for you.
The slow picking, like making a thing of it, versus like sitting down at a place, eating a bunch of food and then leaving. Just sitting down for a few hours and sipping wine and
with
picking
friends,
especially Spanish food like cinco jotas. They're the Serrano ham and the variety of cheeses, and they've got like Tempranillo is such a good wine.
Yep, and that's what, €7 a bottle for a decent Tempranillo.
Totally.
Yeah, I miss Spain. Have you spent a lot of time in Spain?
No, I was there for business. I was there for about a week.
Oh, the wine thing?
Yeah, wine stuff. So
you in Rioja?
No, I was actually only in Barcelona and just had one meeting, but I stayed for about 5 days and just kind of hung out and ate a lot of great food and walked around the city a lot and, saw the Gaudi stuff and all that. It's a nice city to walk around.
Did you get robbed?
No.
Oh,
I've never been robbed.
Wow. The reason I lived in Barcelona or live in Barcelona for so long is that I got robbed. My plan was go to Sevilla and hang out in Sevilla, teach English, practice teaching English, learn some Spanish, make some friends because I had been traveling so much. I hadn't really had friends for a while,
Right.
And sort of stay there for a little while and wait for the Burmese government to fall. And then once the government falls, pack up my shit, go to Hungary and get the Trans-Siberian Railroad from Budapest to Beijing, which costs like $400 or something. It's like super cheap. It was like 14 days, 15 days or something on a train. And then I was going to go from Beijing down into Burma and be like one of the first Westerners in Burma since World War II,
Wow.
Really, except for a very controlled tourism. That was my plan. So I flew into Paris where my buddy was living, hung out with him for a little bit, and then I thought, well, instead of just flying to Sevilla, I'll take a bus to Barcelona and then over to Madrid, spend a couple days in each of the cities, get to know it a little bit, and then go to Sevilla and start my life, right? I had like $5,000 saved up or something, seed money. And I got to Barcelona, and the first night in Barcelona, someone distracted me and stole my bag, and I had a journal in there that I'd been writing in for like 3 years.
Brutal.
I mean, the good side is you mentioned earlier, like, with Facebook, you can keep in touch with people you run into. I had met this dude. I was in northern Mexico. I did this trip, like a long trip started in El Paso down into Guatemala, all overland through Mexico and Guatemala. Is like 9 months, something like that.
Wow.
That's the one that ended with me, that included me getting stung by a scorpion while I was tripping on the Jaguar Temple in Tikal. That was one of the highlights of my travel life. But on that trip, I went to the Barranca del Cobre, which is Copper Canyon. It's deeper and bigger than the Grand Canyon. It's in northern Mexico. And so I went down to the bottom to this little town called Bato Pilas, which you can't go to now because it's all drug gangs and, impossible to travel there. But have you read the book Born to Run?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's where he is, the Tarahumara.
Yeah.
So I went down to this little town, Bato Pilas, which was on the river, and then I hiked up the river back into this canyon, and there's the Lost Cathedral. And it was this Spanish church that had been built in the 1600s, I guess. But now there's like no town. There's nothing there. There are a couple shacks that Indians live in, and it's the ruins of this Spanish church. So I hiked back to this thing. I came around the corner, and I saw there was this dude sitting up on the roof of this church. I'm like, wow, how the fuck did he get up there? So I hiked down to the church, and I go in, and I saw there were these rocks you could climb up, and then there was like this, like a log that you could sort of like shimmy up and work your way around. So I go up on this roof, and of course I'm feeling like I don't want to crowd this dude, like he's got this amazing spot, but I want to get up there. So I get up there, and he's really friendly, and I come over, and we talk, and he's a Spanish guy, Marcos Beascoa, and he gave me his sister's phone number in Barcelona. And he said, because he was traveling, he's like, I don't have a house, I don't have a phone number, but if you're ever in Barcelona, call my sister if I'm in town, whatever. Awesome. So I get robbed. I've got to wait for a new passport, which is 10 days or something. So I'm like, wait, don't I have that guy's number somewhere? I call him up, and he ends up being one of my best friends to this day.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And he shows me all around, shows me his favorite places, introduces me to all his friends. I start meeting all these women, and someone offers me a job, and someone else says, hey, I've got a spare room. You want to rent a room in my place, whatever. And I'll teach you Spanish. And it's like, whoa, what the fuck? So suddenly, 20 years later, I'm still living in Barcelona.
Right on. That's a cool synchronicity
So that
story.
shit happens,
Yeah.
It's... Yeah, yeah.